Welcome everybody to Dharma Punk Seattle. We started a list last week from the 10 subjects of frequent recollection. And so continuing on with that list, we are on the second one, which is our very lives are sustained by the gifts of others. And it seems as though when that interacts with a capitalist, individualistic culture, even if you don't necessarily subscribe to that culture or have put a lot of distance there, hearing that could feel as though there still might be that knee-jerk reaction of like, no, like I did this, like I built this, I made this. And to really take in how much that even for those of us who have maybe distanced ourselves from some of those values can really still be deeply affected in the way of the idea of hearing that my very life is sustained by the gifts of others might be kind of bring up some aversion. The whole premise of this, because if you reflect on your own life, maybe you are, maybe you live alone, maybe you work for your own money, maybe you don't have family support, and you do actually, in a lot of ways, create your own life and don't have a lot of physical outside support. But on a more practical level, it's like really the only way you could say, no, my life is not sustained by the gifts of others, is if you lived like out in the middle of nowhere and you built all of your own tools by hand. And even that, it's like, where did you learn to build those tools? Where did you develop the survival skills, right? Like even the skills, even the many of the abilities we have are gifts that we have from others. And so this recollection is there to really tie us and bring us into the fact that we are connected to each other. And maybe some of those connections aren't ones that we love, right? Maybe there's family members or friends or different people who have been really influential in our lives that we want to put that distance from, and that's still okay. I think that we can say, my life is sustained by the gifts of others, and fuck you. Like both of those things can coexist simultaneously. One of the big aspects of this that I'm not going to jump too deeply into right now, that'll be for the talk later, is how this helps sever our relationship to loneliness. And because that's what the thought or the feeling of loneliness tells us, right? That we don't have anybody, that we're disconnected, that there's nothing, that there's no one really there for us. And so the importance of them being a recollection, a frequent recollection at that, not just a recollection, but a frequent recollection, is so that way we can start cutting through some of these really difficult feelings and or delusions that we hold. And I will get into sort of the feelings and then the delusion of loneliness. Like sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's a delusion. So taking this on as a practice, that, you know, it's it's said that our minds typically have like the part of our minds that remember the negative are like Velcro. Like they just stick, they grab, and they hold on to everything. But the parts of our mind that remembers the good is more like Teflon. It just kind of slides off, and we forget very easily. And so bringing up practices like the subjects of frequent recollection, because, you know, I don't know about you, but my mind is very good at recollecting a number of things that aren't very useful. It's very good at telling me, you know, that I should worry about something. It's very good at reminding me that I should do something that isn't helpful to my body or to the people in my life. It's very good at reminding me that maybe I'm a piece of shit. It's not very good at reminding me you're connected with people. It doesn't do that very organically. I have to make it an intentional practice. So emphasis on looking up, Googling the 10 subjects of frequent recollection. Maybe one of these days. I don't have them memorized, so I'll actually say them all together and not just list them off one at a time through each talk. Or you can stay on the edge of anticipation and, you know, just see what next week holds. Don't watch the preview. So the discussion prompt for this week, I have a couple of things, and you can kind of just take what resonates with you. One of my teachers, one of my favorite things, it's one of my favorite questions anybody's ever posed to me. And it comes up for me constantly whenever I find myself in a space of loneliness, which was in this scenario, I was going through a lot. I lost a lot of relationships. It was a really tumultuous time in my life, and I was talking about how lonely I was through that period. And my teacher said, "Are you alone, or do you think you're alone?" And I was like, "Fuck you." And you know, it was that sort of jolt of like, okay, who's actually talking, right? Am I speaking from a place of fact? You know, because there are times when we are in fact very alone and lonely, and then there are times where we think we're alone. We come up with this narrative that we're alone and that nobody understands us and blah 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 blah. And so posing that question, are you alone, or do you think you're alone? So you can use that if that feels like a resonant topic for you. Also, just reflecting, this will tie more into the Dharma discussion or Dharma talk later, is your relationship to community. What has, you know, we talk about a lot of our history with relationships, you know, our history with intimate relationships and our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors and da 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 da, but we never really talk about our actual like relationship to community and what that timeline has been like. And so it can be just interesting to insight, investigation, to bring that forward. So for those of you on YouTube, you can either meditate on the topic or journal, and we'll be back in about 8 minutes. Okay. Let's meditate. Finding a way to say that is upright. Stacking each vertebrae one on top of the other. Drawing the lumbar in. Relaxing any tension that might be held in the body, around the jaw, around the belly. If the mind feels excited and agitated, you can gently remind it to it's okay to just pause right now. Take a rest. You've been working very hard. If the mind feels slow and dull, you can encourage it by continuing to straighten the posture, setting an intention, reminding yourself of the importance of meditation, even if just for a short time. Finding the breath, at the base of the nostrils or the rise and fall of the chest or abdomen. And sticking with that place. The mind wants to move on very quickly from this phase of the meditation practice, recognizing that as restlessness, saying thank you. It's okay to relax right now. the mind will wander. And just as the heart beats and the lungs breathe, the mind thinks all on its own. We treat it like a puppy, gently trying to get it to simmer down. Kindly. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. Often in meditation, our inclination is to get our minds to obey. And changing this perspective into how do we create space enough to respond to what the mind does, rather than trying to get it to obey. observing what the mind does. Drifting into planning. Drifting toward the past. Bringing up old pains. Again and again and again. We think often the mind is us. And yet, in meditation, it should become so apparent in that our ability to control the mind is almost impossible. Noticing your attitude when thoughts arise. Are you quickly pulling the leash back violently? Or gently steering? Often we think loving kindness has to be sticky and gooey like syrup, but these simple adjustments of attitude is the very practical and real way loving kindness works. Fourth foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of the Dharma, mindfulness of seeing reality as it is. Sometimes it can be a useful strategy to bring forward the recollections, using an investigative quality. To reflect, to contemplate the meaning of certain aspects of Dharma. And so, like a dropper of water dropping in, my very life is sustained by the gifts of others. Is the mind averse, resistant, trying to build a case on why this statement isn't true? it pleasant. My very life is sustained by the gifts of others. Again, just noticing does this statement make you feel more alone or more connected? Coming back to the breath, if that has been misplaced through this meditation. And for the last few moments of the meditation, sending yourself appreciation. This doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Stay, maybe an acknowledgement. Hello there. Thank you. Thank you. You've been doing a lot of work. Thank you. The statement I gave for the reflection before the meditation. Are you alone, or do you think you're alone? It can be twofold. In this specific scenario, that this person, this teacher of mine was trying to pose and have a very direct mirror to hold up to me in that moment. Apart from maybe the very obvious, like, how can I be alone when I'm having this very beautiful meeting with somebody that I really love and appreciate, as just the obvious step. But the way that the mind can create, can latch onto a feeling and then build off of a narrative. Maybe there was a single moment of disconnection in your day or in your week. Maybe this was a larger event that happened in your life with a friend, a separation of friends happened, and then we take that event and then we make that broad stroke. I'm alone. I'm lonely. And so there is, in that case, an importance of being able just to trace it back to the pain that was initially the source of that. And maybe some loneliness is coming out of that, but it's okay to be in just the pain and loss of a relationship, of a dynamic, of a situation, of whatever it might be. And so that being the one aspect of loneliness, right? And the way that this element of the frequent recollection builds off of that even. The way that, I don't know the way, if you experience this all in your meditation, but I can watch as my mind wants to sort of continue to build that case of like, no, like I'm doing this shit. I'm doing it. And, and then I drop this into my meditation and, even just, there's so many instances throughout my day that I can draw on where I'm like, I didn't put this food in this package, right? I didn't build this pot. I didn't build this house. Like there's so many different elements of the things that I brush up against that I didn't do. And so beyond just, I think, taking it to, maybe I only feel connected to like one person. Only one person's got my back. Only 2 people got my back. The way that can sort of cut through, and it's like it doesn't matter who's got your back. You live because others exist. And that's pretty beautiful. And, one of the things that I think I mentioned this in a talk recently, that my own teacher, my other teacher continues to encourage me on is the way that it's perfectly okay to be lonely and alone. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's not an end-all be-all to just have the feeling of loneliness present. It feels very, very threatening. And often when I get that reflection, the way that my heart and my mind can shift when, it can be so tense and grasped around this idea, and the moment that I shift and I'm like, it's just okay to just, like, even if you have a partner, like, I wake up and I'm alone. I go to bed and I'm alone. This is just part of life. There's moments when we're alone, and there's periods of our life when we have more authentic connection and less. And letting that just sort of be a flux of our lives. And that being one of the big parts of what meditation is trying to teach us, right? There's sort of like the thought, the story, and that is something that we can repel and get rid of, right? Like, this is just a thought. This is a story. This is something Mara is coming with. And then there's the actual sort of in your heart and gut feeling of loneliness. And like any of the feelings that we encounter, they're all welcome. We don't try to get rid of them. We make room for the spectrum of our experience, the joy and the sorrow, the loneliness and the connection, and that they all just move through at different points. I appreciate that in Buddhist practice, community is a one of the gems of the triple gem. So if you, when they say that we take refuge in the practice, what we're taking refuge in is the Buddha, but not actually that guy necessarily. Just that's a different Dharma talk. But taking refuge in the Buddha, not the person. Taking refuge in the Dharma, meaning reality, and taking refuge in the Sangha, in community. And I love that is a pivotal and important piece, next to reality, apparently, right? Like you put these all up next to each other. Like I always feel like community doesn't really like sit like Buddha. Like that sounds exalted. Look at that guy. Fucking reality, community. And I know I talk about community a lot, but I think one aspect of that I don't really talk about, and maybe one of the things that can help sort of counteract some of the loneliness that people encounter, is that, because even in community, right? Like I feel like I've been fortunate that I've been in community for years, not only in Buddhist groups, but in recovery groups. And there are still fucking days I feel lonely as shit, where I'm just like, I have nobody. And some of that is, I believe, a little bit of conditioning, in that my own history and upbringing was one of isolation. And I think even if you grew up in maybe a church community, there's sort of probably a reason you left, and there's an internal isolation that can happen in those groups where, we weren't cool enough to, sit at the fucking cool bench in the pew or whatever. I don't know. Like, didn't subscribe good enough. And so we never really learned how to be in community. And then we're told at some point in our adult lives that community is good for you and you should have one, and then you get one, and then you're like, I don't know what this is doing. Is this helping? And some days that's really obvious. Some days you go into community and you're like, yeah, that felt fucking good. Loved that. And other times it's not so clear and it's not so apparent. And so I think some of that is learning how to be a member of a community, because that isn't, I don't think that's very intuitive. At least in my own practice, being a member of community is not extremely intuitive. My sort of default settings want to usually take me out of community. Usually want to find reasons why I don't belong to a certain group. And so learning to be a part of a community. And some of that takes one being able to receive gifts, love, vulnerability. I think in my own practice, early on coming into community, I can remember how difficult it was to receive help of any kind on a spectrum. That asking for help or just receiving something as simple as receiving a compliment could, you know, bring me a lot of aversion. And so learning how, because that's a part of being a community, is like, come on, let other people have the good fucking karma and let them help you. Let them give you shit. Let them build their karma by being of service to you. Another aspect, which was the trick of how I ended up letting people help me, was I didn't want to rob people of their karma. It's like, at least I can come at it from that angle. I want you to be good, so I'll let you, I guess, do some shit to help me out. Another aspect of being in community is, I think, learning to be curious about people. Most of our lives, at least before I really came into my own meditation practice, I didn't find myself very curious about people. I was very curious about sharing what I wanted to tell people, the cool shit that I was doing and whatever that might be. But there wasn't a curiosity in my relationships. And so it can be an interesting practice in itself, mindfulness of speech. Wise speech is one of the things on the Eightfold Path. And a part of that is being able to recognize what our intentions are with our speech. Is it, are we just being in community to service ourselves? And, maybe subtly being energy vampires to the people around us? Or are we genuinely getting curious about people, wanting to know about them? Because I think that in my own life, the times that I have felt most seen and most connected with people is when people got curious about me. When people really wanted to know who I was and ask me questions and, weren't interested in just, trying to dominate the space. So that's another aspect of, I think, learning to be a community member. And the other one, I think, being a refuge, this idea of being a refuge for others. When we take the 5 precepts, we become safe for other people. When we become people who, try, at least to the best of our ability, to not lie, to not kill, to not be fucking geeked out on drugs, to, we become safe for others. And that's something that the practice can offer people in Sangha is, there's a lot of people in this world who didn't grow up with those things, and I find that, it's in my own life and, the people, I just started seeing clients recently, and, some of the conversations I've had sort of took me back to this time when there was a time when nobody felt safe, when everybody in my life was liars, cheaters, stealers, robbers. Everybody was out to take something, and consciously or not, that's a lot of people in this world, because that's just a lot of the status quo. So learning to be in community can, I think, be a practice in itself. One of my favorite metaphors for community is that we're like a rock tumbler, that we come in with all of these edges and that we bump up against each other and we smooth each other out to be nice little river rocks or something. I don't know if that's the goal, but because, you know, that's one of the things that happens, right, in communities, is that we're not in a community and we're like, fuck, I'm so alone, I need a community, and then we get a community and we're like, fuck, all these people are annoying, I hate them. And then we want to be out of community. And so also looking for the way that extreme, that there's like the grass is always greener on the other side, on either spectrum. If we leave community, we're isolated, we're alone, and it hurts. If we're in community, it hurts because we got all these fucking mirrors up and they're showing us some shit that maybe we're not ready to see. And I think that's why Sangha remains to be in the triple gem, because if we're sitting alone, we don't have a mirror. So, maybe it will come back to me. I do feel there was another aspect of this that I wanted to say, but it has left my mind. So, if anybody has thoughts, questions, yeah. What's up, Ellie?
I don't know if this is a good thing, but it might be an improvement. I feel like I've compartmentalized loneliness to one space, kind of. I don't feel loneliness often in other places.
Okay.
Or if I do, it's very fleeting and I can let it be there for a little bit and then it goes. But in one specific place, I can't deal with it.
I mean, that's good data. I feel like it's really good information to know what tends to trigger feelings of any kind, loneliness in particular, the most. And then to get curious, right? Is this the type of loneliness where I have to see that this is a story? There's a whole story and a narrative, and the practice is I see you, Mara, and allow it to sort of fade? Or is this something that's just heavy and on the heart, and there's loss, and you got to sit with it?
I think that's the trouble with that particular one, is it's always a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. And so it can be maybe difficult to know the difference in the moment. Yeah. Well, it seems maybe that the story is never useful. So, any other thoughts, questions? Okay. We'll leave it there then. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I don't know if it's gonna happen. I probably shouldn't even say anything. Damn it! I already said it. Fuck. I'm trying to get one of my teachers to come out here to do a day-long weekend situation with me. So I'll keep you updated. Regardless, there's going to be a winter day-long retreat happening. So mentally prepare yourselves for that. And Donna, If you would like to donate, you can donate via cash into the bowl. You can donate via Venmo or Cash App. I can give you that information. And but ultimately, all the teachings are freely offered, so do not feel any pressure. With that, we will end with the dedication of merit. May any goodness that was gathered here today not be hoarded to ourselves, but given above and below to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.